What's up, boys and berries? I want to talk about, I did that video a while ago talking about like what trades make the most money and all that stuff. And right now I want to talk about what the hardest trade is, okay? Now this trade you can make a lot of money in if you're the right guy, and that is tile. I would say tile is going to be the hardest trade around, and I think a lot of people sleep on how hard tile is, and I will explain why tile is so hard. One, you're working with pretty much masonry products, okay? You're mixing mortar, you're troweling mortar onto walls, you're back buttering tiles, and then you're also cutting sometimes masonry products. Sometimes it's not porcelain tile, sometimes it's full stone tile, full stone like kind of pavers, or large format, or full, like today people love the full stone or porcelain slabs where they're like massive slabs, like they take up they're the whole floor space, right? So heavy stuff, rough on the hands, man, the mortar and everything like that. Two, you have to make sure like everything's plumb and level and square with tile, okay? It's very hard. A lot of people, and again, like I've done it too, and I've been able to do it in a few specialty cases, especially like remodels. In new construction, there should be no excuse. Everything should be level, square, fucking flat, okay, for your tile guy. There should be no excuse for that. But in remodels, every so often, you got to use this mortar to kind of float a spot or something like that. And a lot of people think, oh, it's fine, I'll just float it with mortar. That will catch you in a bad spot if you're doing a tile job. So everything's got to be perfectly square, flat. You got to mix all this mortar. And then when you're making your cuts, you got to make sure the cuts are actually good looking cuts, right? Like you're looking right at it. Everything you do is a finished product. There's not a lot of tricks in tile to hiding imperfections or mistakes. There's a few, but there are not many of those tricks, okay? And that's what makes tile, I believe, the hardest trade. I really do believe it is a labor-intensive trade that is also a finished product. So you, even though you're not using your brain to like diagnose an HVAC system and stuff, because a lot of these guys will come and tell me, oh, well, it's not as hard, a tile guy can't learn HVAC, an HVAC guy can learn tile or whatever, it's hard to diagnose stuff. I completely disagree. I think a tile guy with all the factors he's got to deal with and stuff would pick up HVAC faster than an HVAC guy would pick up tile. I guarantee it. That's just an argument that a lot of electricians and HVAC guys will bring up, is that they might not be as physical or whatever, but it's more brain power, which I get. Like I would never try to teach a concrete guy HVAC, you know what I mean? But I might teach an HVAC guy concrete, but I wouldn't teach him tile, all right? Because tile, you gotta be a special motherfucker to do tile. You truly gotta be a special motherfucker to be a tile only contractor, especially. Like I'll do tile for myself. I've done tile in the past job. The tile job I'm doing now is probably the last tile job I'm ever gonna do for a client. Not because I can't do it, because I'm tired of doing it. I got easier ways to make money, bro. I got easier ways to make money. I would rather install 10 HVAC units on a job than install tile on a whole bathroom. I'm going to end up being in that bathroom longer than I am doing those HVAC units. And, I could price myself where I make as much in the HVAC, but I'm going to make more in the HVAC faster than I am in the tile business. You know what I mean? So if you're a guy who's a tile sub, you got to be a special motherfucker. You're going to be a little artsy-fartsy. You're going to definitely be a different dude. I've never met a normal tile guy. I've never met one. They're always fucking wackadoodle, But you gotta be You have to have the strength of a concrete guy and mason with the detailed eye of a homosexual painter. That's pretty much what you got to do. You have to be a mixture of a flamboyant Castro Street leather-wearing daddy that has that eye for design and a concrete guy who voted for Trump and complains about trans people constantly. That's the mix that you got to be. It's a weird mix, man. So, that was a little ranty, a little long, but tile is the hardest trade. And I really implore anybody to prove me wrong. So, but again, man, if you can do tile, you can do good tile. People will pay you bucks, baby. People will pay you bucks to do tile. And once you do it over and over and over, it gets easier, you know. But tile's a tough trade. I'll tell you that.